Well, the lockdown is finally over, but now we got a new issue. Of course, as you know, the left has gone fucking apeshit. And when I say the left, I mean the left, leftist dipshits of all races, genders, sexes, sexual orientations, skin colors, skin tones, hair style dynamics, leftists of all kind. They've collectively gone ape shit. They're acting like the primates at the beginning of 2001 Space Odyssey. If you ever see the movie, watch it. Basically, they are destroying cities, they are rioting, they are looting, all because one black man, George Floyd, was murdered by a cop. Now, these people collectively are a Johnny come lately to the issue of police brutality. I've been following police brutality all the way back to like 2007 for about 13 years now. And I've watched various videos on YouTube way before it was cool of people getting harassed by police, people getting beaten by police, and people, yes, people even being murdered by police. George Floyd's murder actually wasn't the most outrageous murder I've ever seen by a police officer. In fact, the worst murder I've ever seen, it comes in a close second, don't get me wrong, it was horrific. The cop literally had his knee on the guy's neck for 9 minutes. It's tr- what is the point of that? The guy was no longer resisting. But the guy, that is not the worst murder. The worst police murder I've seen was the Eric Garner murder in 2014. Eric Garner was being harassed by a cop for something equally stupid. He was selling cigarettes under the under the table because people were invading New York City's. And this is the left law, by the way. This is a law that the left actually pushed on people. The left taxes the hell out of cigarettes to prevent people from smoking in the city, so people go under the table and try to make cigarettes. Well, Eric Garner was just selling, homemade cigarettes, I guess, and a cop was harassing him for it. Well, Eric Garner had a little confrontation with the cop, and the cop never said he was under arrest. The cop never tried to handcuff him, never told him to freeze. Eric Garner just got in the face of the cop and left. He turned his back. As soon as Eric Garner turned his back on the cop, again, the cop didn't say freeze or you're under arrest or you have the right to remain silent. He just goes up to behind Eric Garner and starts choking him to death. Starts choking him, and Eric Garner was like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, as he's being choked to death. That it was actually more outrageous than George Floyd, because George Floyd was actually arrested and had his rights, I think, read to him, whereas Eric Garner wasn't even arrested. He was being told that the cop comes up right behind him and starts choking him. Now, under police procedure, I don't know much about police procedure, but I know in no circumstances is a police officer ever trained to choke somebody out, especially when they have their back turned and they're not even under arrest. This police officer is pig, okay? There's a difference between a cop and a pig. A cop is someone who respects your constitutional rights. A pig is someone that looks for every way to violate them. And that pig violated Eric Garner's constitutional right and killed him, murdered him. The murder was caught on videotape. He comes up right behind him, chokes him, sneaks behind his back. But here's the even more outrageous thing. I'll put the link in the description. That pig that murdered Eric Garner got completely scot-free. No one declined. Everyone may have fussed at William Barr and the federal justice system didn't prosecute the cop. Well, it wasn't up to the federal prosecutor. It was up to the local prosecutors in New York. If they could prosecute the Proud Boys and send them to jail for 4 years for getting in a fight with Antifa and kicking Antifa's ass, they can't prosecute a cop who was caught on or a pig that was caught on videotape murdering an innocent civilian. Outrageous. It should have been the New York prosecutor or even the state prosecutor's office that should have done them. The left was all about Black Lives Matter, and how come these leftist Democrats didn't prosecute the murder of Eric Garner? Why? Why wasn't this nearly as big of an outrage as Eric Garner's death back in 2014 under a black president and a black attorney general, Eric Holder? Why was this not nearly as big of an issue? I tell you why. Because two reasons. One, as I said, it was because we had a black president and a black attorney general. And two, we weren't coming out of a pandemic. What the left really was, and keep in mind, a lot of the people who live in cities were crammed in more so than the people who live in rural community. I live in a rural area, and everything was just mostly normal, with the exception of restaurants and bars being closed, and the places that were open, people had masks. For the most part, everything was normal. But if you lived in a city, everything was shut down. You couldn't even walk outside without a mask in some areas. And if you were a cop, so the people in the city had it worse because they were like living like canned sardines, and they were the biggest supporters of it. So you had the frustration of people being, crammed in like sardines, locked in their apartments for months, and then they see this outrageous murder on videotape, and that was just a straw that broke the camel's back. Again, I think the majority of that pent-up aggression wasn't so much about black lives as it was about the frustration and anxiety and, the deprivation of being crammed in for 3 months. And that's why all the protests and lockdowns are mostly not protests. That's why all the riots and protests and demonstrations, whatever you want to call them, they actually are a mixture of all three. That's why they're included mostly in the cities, because these are the people that felt the brunt of it, and plus they're the more leftist, they're more left-leaning people. So these people have seen the murder, and it fits their social justice narrative, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now all of a sudden, after this, everyone starts going out and protest. In fact, you're not cool and you're a racist if you don't go out and protest. Just a few weeks before, you were evil and trying to kill Granny if you try to open up a business or go outside if it wasn't necessity, or do this or do that if it wasn't necessity. But all of a sudden, when this guy gets murdered by a cops, you're a racist unless you go out and protest, unless you or demonstrate or riot. It's like the COVID-19, all of a sudden it's like, can't, kill left-wing demonstrators. So it actually proved two things. One, it proved how big of a exaggeration the COVID-19 threat was. Because if it was really that big of a threat, the left, or even the more sane people on the left, wouldn't be marching with these demonstrators or protesters. They wouldn't be defending the rioters. They'd be telling them to stay inside. You're going to get everyone sick. But it proved that, and it also proved the left-wing hypocrisy that it was never about public health. It was about control. And when the very same people, like that cunt lesbian mayor of Chicago who ordered all salons, get shut down, while she herself was getting her hair and nails done. She never minded the fact that there were dozens of murders in Chicago every weekend, but she never once spoke angrily about the people murdering people in Chicago. But she spoke very harshly against people who had opened up their business or had gatherings or had parties at their own apartments. That was evil, but never mind the fact that people are going around murdering each other. Shows how stupid some of these far leftist politicians really are. But the left has gone, as I said, completely ape shit. The reason, the Eric Garner thing was way, way, way worse than the George Floyd thing, and the reason people didn't react because they didn't want to make Obama look bad. They weren't coming out of a lockdown, because if they would have reacted the way they did now nationwide, that would put pressure on the black president and the black attorney general. Again, it wouldn't made Obama look bad. Plus, it didn't have the pent-up aggression of being locked down for a false or overly exaggerated pandemic. Yes, it was a pandemic, but it was completely overly exaggerated pandemic for months. So the left has gone apeshit. They've even canceled a kids show called Paw Patrol, which is about, I think it's like a golden yellowish dog who is a cop. I mean, if they wanted to be more realistic about it, they would, have the dog, sniff for drugs and bombs and stuff. Imagine that, a drug sniffing dog for a kid's cartoon show. And then he gets a coke habit. Sort of like Brian on that one episode of Family Guy when he became a drug sniffing dog. But these police dogs, by the way, are just like regular police dogs for little kids. and they're not white police dogs. None of them are white. These are all golden. Some of them have spots. These are all dogs of color, by the way. These are all dogs of color. These police dogs aren't, an army of white police dogs that, go, beating up on black police dogs, or, go pissing on the heads of black police, or black dogs, or go, biting and, ganging up on black dogs every chance they see it. They're not going, an army of white police dogs beating up and, gnawing and barking at all other dogs of color. No, these were dogs of color, police dogs of color. So to say that was a symbol of white supremacy is outright revolting. But again, I've been studying police brutality for years. I've seen white people get harassed, attacked, and murdered by cops. I've seen black people, of course, get harassed, murdered, and attacked by cops. I've seen Asians get murdered and harassed and attacked by cops. Arabs getting murdered, harassed, and attacked by cops. Hispanics, Puerto Ricans, all murdered and harassed and attacked by cops. I've seen it for years, and believe me, police brutality is not a race issue. It's what it is you have some bad apples in the police force, or hopped up on roids, use their badge to bully people, demand. They have this false sense of entitlement, think they can, get away with whatever they want because they're fucking the prosecutors or sucking the dick of the prosecutors. These, and it's just a handful of them. They're not systematically racist. It's not all police officers. It's just a handful of bad apples. Because if it was all police officers, or even a lot of police officers, you would see a lot more cases of this. But it's clearly not. It's a few of bad apples that just like to exercise their authority, acting like Cartman in an episode where he was a cop and is like, respect my authority! And, starts beating people, they'll look at him the wrong way. It's basically that in real life with some bad pigs. And there's a difference between a cop and a pig. A cop respects your constitutional rights, a police officer, or a pig looks for any way they can to violate them and bully you around. Okay, there are a few pigs in the police force that, would indiscriminately, throw their way around. I'm not saying they're all not racist. Some of them probably are racist. Hell, some of the good ones, who don't go out and, step out of line probably may be secretly racist. But what I mean by good cop is, someone that, may be racist but doesn't exercise their belief of racism on someone. But you have a hand group of pigs, look for any way they can to use their badge to bully people around, and they do it to white people, they do it to Asians, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, black people. They do it to all races. It's just because some pigs love the power that comes with having a badge, and they abuse it. The pig is someone who abuses his power of the badge. Well, and I'm not saying all these pigs are not racist. I'm willing to bet some of them are racist, but not all of them. I think all of them, a majority of pigs are not racist. They just use their badge to bully people around, and they don't care if you're a white person talking who looks at them the wrong way, a Puerto Rican that looks at them the wrong way, an Hispanic that looks at them the wrong way, a black person, they might even some that are, both. There are pigs that, are bullies that bully people around, and they might be a little racist. So if a white person looks at them the wrong way, they, might get in their face. But if a black person looks at them the wrong way and gets mouthy, they might whip them with a knife stick. Again, but overall, majority of pigs I don't think are racist. They're just bullies, and they'd bully a white person just as much quickly as they'd bully a black person or an Asian person or a Puerto Rican or a Hispanic or an Arab person. Police brutality is not racist. In fact, if you look at the numbers, something like 12 unarmed white men in 2019 were murdered by cops, whereas only 9 unarmed black men were murdered by cops. At the same time, you cannot ever justify cops murdering people at all. Okay, everyone's like, well, they're running from the police. Running from the police, yes, I believe it's a crime, a misdemeanor or something, but it should not be a crime punishable by death. You know, resisting arrest should also not be a crime punishable by death. I get really pissed when I hear some conservative people have a giant hard-on for raging. There's a difference between libertarians and conservatives. Is that libertarians are much more skeptical of, you know, the militarism, law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and all that than conservatives are. Conservatives have a giant raging hard-on for, you know, militarism, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies. Libertarians like us are much more skeptical. And you hear some conservatives are like, you respond to the criticism, well, why did Dylan Roof, who was mass murdering people, get taken alive, but, you know, some guy who was being allegedly accused of passing on a counterfeit $20 bill been murdered in police custody? That's a very great fucking point. That's a very great point. And the conservatives are like, well, Dylan Roof didn't resist arrest. That fucking made me fucking that kind of outrageousness makes me pissed. So you could be caught mass murdering someone and mass murdering people, red-handed mass murdering people. But if you don't resist arrest, you get a fair trial. But god damn it, if you're passing a fake $20 bill or selling cigarettes that the city doesn't approve of, you resist arrest, you don't get a fair trial or due process. You resist arrest, and that's punishable by death. Total fucking bullshit. Total fucking bullshit. Resisting arrest is not a crime. It should be punishable by death. In fact, I think all mass shooters should probably be shot on sight. Okay? I mean, if you're caught, man, think about it. I think the reason they don't is there is a distinct possibility that during a mass shooting, one of the would-be victims overpowers the mass shooter and takes his gun away and holds him, you know, at gunpoint or beats him up or has the gun and just has the gun in their hand trying to point at the shooter. The cops can walk in, see the person who's trying to detain the mass shooter before he mass murders people, and they see the person with the gun automatically thinks he's a mass shooter and shoot him. They just killed the guy who probably saved more people's lives. You know, the guy stopped the mass shooter. I think that's the only reason I could think of not to shoot mass murderers on sight, because why go through a trial? Why, you know, spend thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, keeping these lowlifes in prison for the rest of their life? And even if they do get death sentences, they're on death row for like 20 fucking years, and by then, you know, after being on death row for 20 years, you're like, okay, give it to me already. Jesus Christ. You know, just give it to me already. Make it painful, you know. But Jesus, you know, you should not have people justifying that resisting arrest is a crime punishable by death. Running from the cops is not all. Police should never draw a fire at a guy running from them, who, especially in residential neighborhoods, who isn't armed. If he's not armed and he's running from him, let him go. Fuck it, you know. Like that, like there was a case in Pittsburgh where this guy was pulled over for, and he was scared because he was wanted for child support. That's a civil issue. That's not even a criminal, but they do give criminal penalties to people. Oh, they put them in jail for like 30 days sometimes. So he was scared of owing child support, so he takes off running. And the police draw their guns in a residential neighborhood and shoot the guy for running. Running from the cops should not be a crime punishable by death. I'm sorry, it's not. They have the right to do due process. In fact, if they shot a person, and if they missed the guy who was running, they could hit, you know, the bullet could go anywhere, especially in a residential neighborhood. It could go in and, you know, maybe kill someone, an innocent person who's just in their house chilling, you know. And what would happen then? Oh, they'll charge the guy with running. Not the officer who fired the weapon, but the guy who was running from the cops with the murder of the person that the cop killed accidentally by firing off his gun. A similar case happened, I think, in New York City. A police officer was an old Asian guy who was jaywalking. And the Asian guy didn't listen to him, so the cop pulled out his gun and started firing at him. And he missed the Asian guy, hit some innocent bystander. I don't think they killed the innocent bystander, but this is how corrupt the prosecution was. It charged the Asian guy who was jaywalking with shooting the guy, the innocent bystander the cop hit with his gun. Again, unreal. There definitely needs to be criminal justice reform. There definitely needs to be police brutality definitely needs to be weighed in, but it's not a fucking race issue. It never was a race issue and still isn't a race issue. There are people of all races, creeds, sexes, genders, sexual orientations are brutalized by pigs, brutalized and victimized by, self-serving, bullying pigs, and constantly. I'm not saying that all these self-serving bullying pigs are not racist. I'm saying for the most part, these people are bullying, bully around just about anyone who doesn't respect their authority.